Ryan's office revenge.
They told me to come in early for my performance review. Instead of the promotion I'd earned, they handed me a termination letter. Their fatal mistake? Assuming those 7 accounts belonged to the firm and not to the man who'd spent 12 years building relationships they couldn't replicate. By lunchtime, I'd walked out with every single one. This is how you dismantle a company that thought you were replaceable. My name is Mason Clark, and for 12 years I carried Morrison and Partners on my back. 49 years old, widowed, living in a decent apartment in Chicago's Lincoln Park because I'd poured everything into a career I believed would reward loyalty. That Wednesday morning started with an email that made me smile. Mason, please arrive at 7:30 a.m. for your annual review and compensation discussion. Compensation discussion. After landing the Griffin portfolio expansion last month, a $12 million addition everyone said was impossible, I knew this meant senior partner, maybe even my name added to the door. The morning commute felt different. I grabbed coffee from my usual spot, walked past the river, and felt like I'd finally made it in this city. Sarah, my daughter, had just started her junior year at Yale. Everything was falling into place. The receptionist wouldn't meet my eyes when I signed in. Strange, but I attributed it to early morning nerves. Our chief executive officer, Vincent Morrison, stood outside the executive conference room, checking his watch. He didn't smile when he saw me. Inside, 3 people waited. Vincent, Amanda from Human Resources, and someone from Legal whose name I'd never learned. No champagne, no handshake, just a folder with my name on it sitting in the center of an otherwise empty table. Mason, have a seat, Amanda said, using that voice HR people practice for delivering bad news. I remained standing. What's going on? Vincent finally looked at me, and I recognized the expression. The firm is restructuring. We're consolidating the wealth management division. Consolidating. I let the word hang there. I manage 7 of your top 12 accounts. The decision is final, the legal representative said, sliding papers toward me. We're offering standard severance, 6 weeks salary, benefits through next month, and a generous letter of recommendation. I looked at the termination date. Today. Effective immediately. You're firing me during my review meeting. Amanda shifted in her chair. We need you to surrender company property. Laptop, phone, building access. Security is waiting to escort you to your workspace. Then it clicked. Bryce Morrison, the 29-year-old with an economics degree from Northwestern and 0 practical experience, the one who'd been shadowing me for 8 weeks, asking detailed questions about client preferences, meeting schedules, communication styles, the one whose father sat in the chair across from me. Who's taking my accounts? I asked, already knowing. Vincent's hesitation confirmed everything. Bryce will be transitioning into an elevated role. He's been training extensively. The kid who'd called a municipal bond a city investment 3 weeks ago. Who'd shown up late to a breakfast meeting with Walter Griffin, costing me an hour of relationship repair. I need to contact my clients, I said. That won't be necessary. We're handling all transitions internally. Amanda's smile looked fake. Your email access was terminated at 7 a.m. Before I'd even walked through the door, they'd erased me from the system, before telling me I no longer existed. Sign the severance agreement, the legal rep said. The non-compete is standard. 18 months, same industry, 50-mile radius. I almost laughed. I never signed a non-compete when you hired me. His jaw tightened. It's incorporated into the severance package. Then I decline your package. The room went still. They'd expected compliance. Good old Mason. Always reliable, always following protocol. Security is outside, Vincent said. Standing. This needs to happen now. I walked to the door, then turned back. You might want to call Walter Griffin. He specifically chose Morrison and Partners because of our relationship. Same with Patricia Wells, the Chamberlain brothers, Helen Martinez, and Alan Price. Oh, and Bryce should know that Walter only conducts business before 8 a.m. He's particular about that. Vincent's face went pale. Those names represented $58 million in managed assets. Also, I added, Patricia's son just made partner at his law firm. She'll appreciate a congratulations card. And Alan's wife passed away 6 months ago. He's still grieving. Might need someone who actually remembers these things matter. I left them with their paperwork and their restructuring and their complete inability to understand what they'd just destroyed. 2 security guards I'd greeted every morning for 12 years stood in the hallway. Glenn, the older one, looked at the floor as he followed me to my office. The walk through the trading floor felt uncomfortable. Conversations stopped. Computer screens suddenly became fascinating. Everyone knew what was happening, but corporate survival meant pretending otherwise. My desk looked exactly as I'd left it yesterday. Coffee mug still sitting there. Notes for today's meeting with the Chamberlain brothers still visible on my monitor. Except Bryce Morrison now occupied my chair, scrolling through my files like he owned them. "Mason," he said, standing quickly. "This is awkward. I want you to know I didn't ask for this. Get up. I'm just trying to make the transition smooth. Get out of my chair." He moved aside, and I began packing 12 years into a cardboard box. The plant from my first major client. Awards from industry conferences. Photos from client dinners where I'd believed I was building something permanent. That's when I noticed a printed document on my desk. Bryce's transition plan, probably left by accident. 7 of my accounts listed with notes about modernizing communication and implementing fresh strategies. He'd lasted 15 minutes in a meeting with Patricia Wells before she'd politely asked him to let the adults talk. 20 minutes, Glenn said quietly. "I'm sorry, Mason. This isn't right." I nodded, continuing to pack. My personal laptop went into the box. My planner filled with 12 years of handwritten notes about client preferences, family details, important dates, relationships that couldn't be transferred through a memo. My company phone was gone, but my personal cell sat in the desk drawer. I'd used it for years to be more accessible to clients, building connections that existed outside Morrison and Partners infrastructure. I slipped it into my pocket. "Mason," a voice called. "Nicole from accounting, holding a folder. Final expense reports need your signature." I flipped through them. Dinners with clients, flights to conferences, thousands spent building relationships. Morrison and Partners was now stealing. "Actually, Nicole," I said loud enough for nearby desks to hear, "there's an error. The Griffin Group dinner from last week shows 6 people. Only Walter and I attended. Might want to correct that $700 overcharge." Her face turned red. The executives had been padding expenses for years. Bryce appeared again. "I was hoping we could schedule a transition meeting, maybe go over the account specifics. My consulting rate is $500 an hour, 4-hour minimum. But you're being terminated." "Exactly. Which means any knowledge transfer happens on my terms, or you figure it out yourself." His mouth opened, closed. Behind him, I saw the whiteboard where I'd mapped quarterly strategies for each client. I walked over and erased everything. 12 years of planning gone in 30 seconds. "You can't do that," Bryce protested. "I just did. That's my intellectual property. My strategies, not Morrison and Partners." Back at my desk, I finished packing. The box felt lighter than 12 years should weigh. As Glenn escorted me toward the elevator, I passed the break room. A cake sat on the counter. "Welcome to senior management, Bryce and Blue Frosting." They'd celebrated my replacement before firing me. At the elevator, I handed Glenn my building access badge. "Take care of yourself, Mason," he said quietly. I heard them talking. "They think the clients will stay because of the Morrison name. They're wrong." The elevator doors opened. I stepped inside with my box and my phone and 12 years of relationships they thought they owned. As the doors closed, I saw Vincent rushing toward Bryce's desk, his face tight with panic. Someone had already called. In the lobby, I set the box on a bench and checked my personal phone. Dozens of messages waited. Clients who'd heard through the corporate grapevine, people who'd been told their accounts were being reassigned. Walter Griffin's text was first. "Just got an automated email. Call me immediately." I looked up at the Morrison and Partners logo etched into the marble wall. 12 years of 70-hour weeks, canceled plans, relationships built on trust and genuine care. They'd locked me out at 7 a.m., confident that would be enough. They were about to learn how wrong they were. My apartment had never felt more like a refuge. I dropped the box by the door and went straight to my home office, a spare bedroom where I'd spent countless nights finishing proposals Morrison and Partners took credit for. I opened my laptop and found a file I'd labeled personal network documentation. Not client financial data. I wasn't stupid enough to steal proprietary information. This was relationship intelligence, the kind you couldn't download from any database. Walter Griffin, early riser, only communicates 6 to 8 a.m. Lost his granddaughter in a car accident 5 years ago. Never schedules meetings near the anniversary. Drinks black coffee. Hates presentations. Loves handwritten notes. Tests new advisors by asking about tax-exempt bonds. If you can't explain municipal advantages in 90 seconds, you're done. Patricia Wells runs a nonprofit for women entrepreneurs, makes decisions during her morning walks. Catch her between miles 3 and 5 and she'll consider anything reasonable. Her assistant Karen screens everything ruthlessly. Remember Karen's daughter's dance recitals and you're golden. Son just made partner at Richardson and Associates. Charles and Timothy Chamberlain. They compete constantly but present united fronts to outsiders. Never put them in a room without a mediator. Email both simultaneously or they'll assume conspiracy. They test advisors by discussing different investments, then switching topics to see if you're listening. Helen Martinez runs a literacy nonprofit for underprivileged kids. Vegetarian, takes business meetings seriously. Her foundation's endowment requires careful planning. She values advisors who understand nonprofit regulations and tax implications. Alan Price, widowed 6 months ago, still grieving. Needs gentle handling around financial decisions. His late wife handled most social interactions. He's learning to navigate business relationships alone, extremely detail-oriented about documentation. Diana Foster, pharmaceutical executive, travels frequently. Prefers evening calls due to West Coast clients. Has twin daughters starting college next year. Worried about education funding and early retirement planning. Stephen Wade has a daughter with special needs requiring long-term financial planning. Extremely cautious about any changes to investment strategy. Needs detailed explanations and written confirmations for all decisions. I studied each entry, remembering the hours spent learning these details. Not through corporate training, but through genuine conversation and actually caring about them as people. My phone buzzed constantly. I'd silenced all notifications except calls and texts, so every vibration meant something real. Walter had called 5 times. Patricia left a voicemail. Even the Chamberlain brothers had sent a joint text. What's happening? Bryce Morrison just called us, but I wasn't ready to respond. First, I needed documentation. I opened a new document. Professional relationships predating Morrison and partners' employment. Because here's what their legal team had missed. I'd known Alan Price before joining the firm. We'd served on the same charity board. Patricia Wells and I had met at an investment conference 3 months before Morrison recruited me. These weren't just clients. They were my professional network. I pulled physical files from my cabinet, business cards from conferences, personal thank you notes sent to my home, holiday cards, 12 years of relationship building that existed outside Morrison's infrastructure. My personal email told the rest of the story. Hundreds of exchanges with clients from my Gmail, sent during evenings and weekends when Morrison servers were down or when clients needed immediate responses. The timestamp on Walter's first personal email, 6:45 a.m., 4 years ago. Mason, I know it's early, but I trust your judgment. Call when you can. Not Morrison's judgment, mine. I screenshot everything, creating a trail of relationships that transcended employment contracts. Then I noticed something that made me laugh, actually laugh for the first time all morning. In my effort to be thorough, I'd created detailed client profiles over the years, updating them quarterly. But I'd stored them in my personal cloud, not Morrison's system. Every preference, every strategy, every relationship detail, all mine. Bryce Morrison was operating blind, and he didn't even know it. My phone rang. Nicole, my former assistant, calling from her personal cell. Mason, I'm in the parking garage, she whispered. Bryce is having a breakdown. Walter Griffin called asking about the Memorial Fund, and Bryce has no idea what that means. The Memorial Fund. Walter's code for his granddaughter's scholarship foundation. We'd established it together, working through the details, while he grieved. It gets worse, Nicole continued. Patricia's assistant called to confirm your lunch Friday at that vegetarian place she likes. When Bryce tried to take the meeting, Karen said Patricia doesn't meet with strangers and hung up. I smiled at my laptop screen. 12 years of careful relationship building couldn't be transferred with a title. Thanks for the update, Nicole. Mason, are you taking them with you? They were never Morrison's to begin with. After hanging up, I stood and stretched. My phone kept buzzing. 7 clients who just discovered their trusted advisor had been unceremoniously dumped. 7 relationships built on respect and genuine care. I picked up my phone and looked at the messages. It was 10:30 a.m. By noon, I'd have spoken to all of them. Morrison and partners thought they'd fired me. In reality, they'd set me free. I started with Walter. He answered before the first ring finished. Mason, what the hell is this? Some child called saying he's my new advisor. He didn't even know about the foundation. Walter, I was terminated this morning. Effective immediately. Bryce Morrison is taking over your account. Silence. Then, where are you now? Home. Figuring out next steps. Meet me at Gibson's in 30 minutes. Gibson's was our usual spot, a quiet steakhouse near the Loop where Walter conducted real business. I'll be there. My second call went to Patricia Wells. She was in her office but stopped everything when she heard my voice. Mason. Karen told me some stranger tried to schedule lunch at a steakhouse. I'm vegetarian and I don't meet with strangers. I was let go this morning. Morrison is restructuring. Bryce is your new account manager. The intern who couldn't calculate compound interest last month? Are they insane? I kept my voice steady. I'm exploring independent options. Send me your proposal today. I don't care what it costs. The third call was trickiest. The Chamberlain brothers valued stability above everything. I called both, simultaneously using a conference feature. Charles, Timothy, I need 2 minutes. Morrison terminated me this morning. Your accounts have been reassigned to Bryce Morrison. You deserve to know immediately. Charles spoke first. The son? That's the one. Timothy's voice was hard. What's your plan? Independent wealth management. Same strategies, lower overhead, better attention. Send us a proposal, they said simultaneously. Tomorrow. 3 down. Helen Martinez answered while at her nonprofit office. Mason, I just got the strangest voicemail from someone named Bryce. He suggested we meet at a sports bar. I winced. Helen ran a literacy program for underprivileged kids. She took business meetings seriously. Helen, I was released from Morrison this morning. Bryce is taking over. He clearly didn't read your profile. A sports bar for discussing my foundation's endowment? What kind of research did this person do? None. He assumed the Morrison name was enough. It's not. Send me your not. Information. I'm interested. 4 for 4. Alan Price was harder to reach. His assistant said he was in meetings all day, still adjusting to running his business without his late wife's help. When he finally called back at noon, his voice was quiet. Mason, I got a call from someone at Morrison. He asked me to verify my wife's information for their records. She passed away 6 months ago. This young man had no idea. My stomach dropped. Alan, I'm so sorry. I was terminated this morning. Bryce Morrison is your new advisor. He should have been briefed about your situation. Should have been, but he wasn't. Alan paused. What are your plans? Starting my own firm. Same service, better attention to what matters. I want to hear more. Can you come by my office tomorrow? Diana Foster was traveling, but answered her phone from the Denver airport. Mason, thank God you called. I got a voicemail from Bryce Morrison asking me to call him back during Chicago business hours. I explained I'm on Pacific, time for the next 3 weeks. He seemed confused. Diana, Morrison terminated me this morning. I wanted you to hear it directly from me. Terminated you? You just saved me $200,000 in tax liability with that portfolio restructure. Are they crazy? Apparently. I'm going independent. Interested in continuing our work relationship? Absolutely. Email me the details. Stephen Wade was the most cautious of my clients. When I called, he was at his daughter's therapy appointment. Mason, I can't talk long, but I got a strange call. This Bryce person asked about changing my investment strategy to something more aggressive. I told him no changes without extensive documentation. He said he'd call back with details. Stephen, I was let go from Morrison today. Bryce is your new advisor, but he doesn't understand your situation. My daughter's needs aren't a situation. They're my priority. Do you have options? I'm starting Clark Wealth Management. Same conservative approach, same attention to your daughter's future needs. Sign me up. Whatever paperwork you need. 7 for 7. Every major client had chosen me over Morrison and Partners. $58 million in assets under management, all moving to my firm within 60 days. By 11:45 a.m., I was sitting across from Walter at Gibson's. He looked older than his 62 years, the way he always did when discussing serious matters. I've been with Morrison for 10 years, he said, cutting into his steak. Know why I stayed? Tell me. You. Not their platform, not their reputation. You understood what the money represented, who it honored. Walter, my attorney can have us out of that contract by end of day. I assume you're going independent. I nodded. Clark Wealth Management. Filing paperwork this afternoon. Good. I want to be your first official client. What's your rate? I haven't decided yet. Whatever Morrison was getting, I'll pay you directly. Eliminate the middleman. My phone buzzed. Patricia had sent a text. Contract terminated with Morrison. Waiting for your proposal. Walter saw my expression. Others jumping? Patricia, the Chamberlain brothers are meeting me at 2. Helen wants documentation. Alan, Diana, and Stephen are all asking questions. That's 7 clients, Mason. How much in total assets? Roughly $58 million. He raised his coffee cup. To Morrison's spectacular mistake. We spent the next hour outlining transition plans. Walter's lawyer would handle the contract termination, citing Morrison's material breach of service quality, language I'd insisted on including 3 years ago. By the time I left Gibson's, 4 more meetings were scheduled. Patricia at her office at 1 p.m., the Chamberlain brothers at a neutral conference room at 2 p.m., Helen for coffee at 3:30 p.m., the others throughout the rest of the week. In my car, I checked messages. Nicole had sent another update. Bryce has been in Vincent's office for an hour. Legal is here. They've lost Walter, Patricia, and the Chamberlains confirmed. Then a text from an unknown number. Mr. Clark, this is Richard Fletcher. Walter Griffin gave me your information. I understand you're starting a new firm. I'm interested in discussing my portfolio. 4 hours ago, they thought they were removing dead weight, promoting their chosen successor, streamlining operations. They'd locked me out at 7 a.m., assuming I'd vanish quietly. Instead, I was about to take 7 of their top accounts before most people finished lunch. Not through theft or manipulation. Simply because Morrison had forgotten the fundamental truth. People don't hire firms. They hire people they trust. My phone rang. Vincent Morrison calling from his personal cell. I let it go to voicemail, then listened. Mason, there seems to be some confusion about the transitions. We'd like to discuss a consulting arrangement to facilitate smooth account transfers. Please call immediately. I deleted the message and called Richard Fletcher instead. Some transitions weren't meant to be smooth. By 4 p.m., Morrison and Partners was in complete meltdown. I knew because Nicole had abandoned her parking garage whispers for direct calls from her car. Mason, it's chaos. They've lost Walter, Patricia, the Chamberlains, and Helen confirmed. Bryce has been removed from all accounts pending review. I was between meetings, sitting in my car outside Helen's office. The afternoon had been a whirlwind of handshakes, strategy discussions, and signed letters of intent. Clark Wealth Management had gone from concept to reality in 6 hours. There's more, Nicole continued. Vincent flew in Morrison's senior partner from New York. Bryce is demanding answers from his father. They're calling it the worst single-day loss in company history. Is that all? You got Alan Price, too. And Diana Foster. That's 6. Meeting Stephen Wade at 5. That'll make 7. Jesus, Mason. That's the entire top tier. They're saying you've destroyed the firm. They destroyed themselves. I'm just landing somewhere safer. My phone beeped. Amanda from HR calling. Nicole, I've got another call. Good luck. And Mason, everyone here is rooting for you. I switched lines. Amanda. Mason, we need to discuss this situation professionally. Morrison is prepared to offer you a senior partnership position, significant increase in compensation, and equity stake. Please come in immediately. Partnership. 12 years of killing myself to drive their success, and it took a $58 million loss for them to recognize my value. I saved the voicemail without responding. At 5:15 p.m., Stephen Wade signed his letter of intent with Clark Wealth Management. He was the most cautious of my clients, the one who analyzed everything twice. Mason, I've had 4 calls from Morrison in the past 3 hours. Vincent Morrison, then Bryce, then some senior partner I've never met. They seem concerned. I imagine they are. Bryce couldn't answer basic questions about my portfolio strategy. He didn't even know about my daughter's trust fund. Everyone knew about Stephen's daughter. She had special needs and required specific financial planning. What do you need from me, Stephen? A contract. Today, if possible. I'll have it to you by tonight. 7 for 7. Every major client had chosen me over Morrison and Partners. $58 million in assets under management, all moving to my firm within 60 days. Nicole texted one final update. Emergency board meeting. Senior partner is threatening to dissolve Chicago office. Vincent might be fired. CEO is demanding to know how they lost $58 million in one day. I pulled up my new business account. Walter's retainer had already hit. Patricia's would clear tomorrow. By week's end, I'd have more capital than I'd earned in 3 years at Morrison. But it wasn't about money. It was about Walter trusting me with his granddaughter's legacy, Patricia believing I understood her values, the Chamberlain brothers knowing I was the only one who could manage their dynamics, Helen letting me into her foundation's important work. Morrison had thought these relationships were company assets, names in a database that could be reassigned at will. They'd locked me out of their systems at 7 a.m., confident that would control the outcome. By 6 p.m., they'd learned otherwise. My phone rang again, Vincent Morrison calling personally. This would be interesting. I answered on the third ring. Mr. Clark, I think we need to discuss this misunderstanding. There's no misunderstanding. Your company terminated me during my review. I've started my own firm. Clients have independently chosen to follow. That's business. His pause lasted long enough that I wondered if we'd been disconnected. What will it take to make this right? Nothing you're willing to offer. Try me. I thought about it. Public apology? Vincent's resignation? Bryce's humiliation? None of it mattered anymore. Your firm gave Bryce my job because of his connections, not his competence. That tells me everything about Morrison's values. My clients deserve better. We could pursue legal action, you could try. But while your lawyers file paperwork, I'll be managing portfolios. Your choice. I hung up before he could respond. Some bridges were meant to burn, and I'd brought plenty of matches. The legal threats arrived like clockwork. By Thursday morning, 3 different cease and desist letters had landed in my inbox, each more desperate than the last. My attorney was having the time of her life. They're grasping, she told me. First, they claimed non-compete violations that don't exist. Then they alleged theft of proprietary information without specifying what you supposedly stole. Now they're trying tortious interference. We're not just defending, she continued. We're countersuing. Wrongful termination, unpaid bonuses, defamation. They want a fight, they'll get one. By noon, the Business Journal article was online. Morrison and partners hemorrhages assets after firing key manager. They had interviewed sources who painted a picture of nepotism, panic, and catastrophic judgment. Bryce Morrison was described as unavailable for comment pending internal review. But the real victory came at 2:30 p.m., when my phone rang with a Boston number. Mason, this is Richard Fletcher. We've never met, but Walter Griffin gave me your information. I'm looking for new wealth management, and your reputation precedes you. I appreciate that, Richard. What kind of portfolio are we discussing? $18 million currently with Morrison, actually. But after hearing what happened to Walter and the others, I'm exploring alternatives. By end of business Thursday, I had 3 new client inquiries, all referrals from my original 7. Morrison wasn't just losing my accounts, they were losing the trust that generated new business. Friday afternoon, 1 p.m., the private room at Gibson's overlooking downtown Chicago. 7 people sat around the table representing $58 million in managed assets and 12 years of relationships that no corporate restructuring could touch. Walter raised his water glass. To terrible decisions and the opportunities they create. Patricia laughed. To HR departments who think connections matter more than competence. To remembering our coffee orders, the Chamberlain brothers said in unison. Helen smiled. To advisors who actually care about our missions. Alan, Diana, and Stephen nodded in agreement. We weren't just celebrating contracts. This lunch marked the birth of something bigger. Clark Wealth Management, built on the idea that clients were people, not portfolio numbers. I have news, Walter said. Morrison tried to sue me for breach of contract. My lawyer's response was beautiful. Apparently, when you fire someone during their bonus meeting and replace them with incompetence, you've materially breached first. Patricia pulled out her phone. Speaking of Morrison, look at their stock price, down 22% this week. The financial press is calling it the Clark effect. There's more, Patricia continued. 6 other firms have contacted me this week. They all asked the same question. Is your advisor taking new clients? I am, I said, but I'm being selective. My phone buzzed. Nicole texting. New management just announced complete overhaul. Bryce is gone. Vincent is gone. Someone put a plant on your old desk with a sign, in memory of competence. I showed the message to the table. Even the Chamberlain brothers smiled. You know what's funny? Walter leaned back. Vincent called me yesterday, offered to rehire you at triple salary if I'd return. As if this was about money. What did you tell him? That Bryce cried in my office? That he tried to schedule Patricia at a steakhouse? That he asked Helen if the foundation thing was really necessary? His expression hardened. Then I told him about Sarah, my granddaughter. The foundation Bryce had reduced to that thing. He hung up on me. As we finished lunch, I thought about Wednesday morning, walking into that conference room expecting recognition, receiving termination instead. How Bryce had been at my desk before security escorted me out. How they'd locked me out at 7 a.m., confident that would be enough. Vincent was gone. Bryce was gone. Morrison and Partners was hemorrhaging talent and reputation, their future uncertain. All because they'd believed relationships could be owned rather than earned. One more thing, Walter said as lunch wound down. I've been talking to colleagues, private equity managers, family offices, hedge fund advisors. They're all asking the same question. Who's Mason Clark? And is he accepting new clients? Patricia laughed. Get in line. I've already referred 3 friends. 4, Helen added. The Chamberlain brothers looked at each other. 8, possibly 9. I looked around the table at 7 people who'd chosen loyalty over convenience, relationships over corporate brands, trust over organizational charts. In 4 days, they'd helped me transform from a terminated employee to a business owner with a waiting list. We finished lunch at 2:45 p.m., signing final paperwork that made Clark Wealth Management official. 7 clients, $58 million under management, and a future that belonged to me. Outside, Chicago's April wind hit hard, but I didn't mind. 4 days ago, I'd left this downtown area with a cardboard box and a security escort. Now I walked out as founder of my own firm with clients who'd followed me through corporate threats and legal intimidation. In business, relationships aren't just important, they're everything. Morrison and Partners had called me in for a bonus meeting and handed me termination instead. They'd thought they were cutting costs, making room for the next generation, streamlining operations. Instead, they'd given me the greatest gift imaginable, freedom to build something real with people who valued trust over org charts, competence over connections. $58 million, 7 clients, and 1 lesson that destroyed a company. When you fire the person holding your business together, don't be surprised when it all falls apart. By Friday evening, Clark Wealth Management was thriving, Morrison and Partners was dying, and Bryce Morrison learned what happens when nepotism meets reality. The best revenge isn't just success, it's the kind that shows exactly what your former employer lost. They'd lost everything that mattered, one relationship at a time. People don't quit companies. They quit bosses who mistake titles for leadership and think nepotism can replace years of proven results. In the end, loyalty isn't something you demand from employees. It's something you earn from clients who will follow the person they trust, not the logo on the building.